A Democratic lawmaker in Virginia called Elizabeth Guzman is introducing a bill that will charge parents with a felony, strip them of their employment, and imprison them if they don't wholeheartedly endorse their minor children's sex changes. So your 12-year-old daughter says she wants a mastectomy. If you object to that in any way, if you raise questions, Elizabeth Guzman will send you to jail. For real. Here's a local news report.
Her bill would expand the state's definition of child abuse and neglect to include parents who do not affirm their child's gender identity or sexual orientation.
There's an investigation also in place that is not only, from a social worker, but there's also a police investigation before we make the decision that there's going to be a CPS charge.
What could the penalties be if, the investigation concludes and it's concluded that a parent is not affirming of their LGBTQ child? What could the consequences be?
Well, we first have to have an investigation. It could be a felony, it could be a misdemeanor, but we know that a CPS charge could harm, your employment, could harm your education.
Here's a video from Boston Children's Hospital, one of the most famous hospitals in the world, which, like many hospitals in the United States at this point, under the Joe Biden administration, cuts the breasts off of minor girls for no medically justifiable reason. Watch a practicing psychologist, an attending psychologist at Boston Children's Hospital, explain how early children can become trans.
So most of the patients that we have in the GEMS clinic actually know their gender, usually around the age of puberty, but a good portion of children do know as early as seemingly from the womb, and they will usually express their gender identity as very young children, some as soon as they can talk. They might say phrases such as I'm a girl, or I'm a boy, or I'm going to be a woman, or I'm going to be a mom. Kids know very, very early. So in the GEMS clinic we see a variety of young children all the way down to ages 2 and 3, and usually up to the ages of 9.
So that's Carrie McGregor. She's a psychologist. She works at Harvard. So think about what they're telling you. They're telling you that the developing child in the womb is just a part of the mother. Therefore, you can abort that child at any time. It's like an appendectomy. But at the same time, that same cluster of cells, that fetus, can also be woke and ascribe to left liberal gender ideology. And you need to honor that. So no sane person could believe any of this voluntarily. It doesn't even make sense on its face. Again, it's a religion. And if you resist it, they resort immediately to force. No questions allowed. Now, again, this is science. And the essence of science is relentless questioning about what you think you know is true. That is the scientific method. That's science itself. But it's no longer allowed. The American Medical Association, which has utterly beclowned itself, along with the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association, just sent a letter to the Attorney General of the United States demanding that the Biden administration, and we're quoting, take swift action to investigate and prosecute high-profile users on social media who have engaged in, quote, disinformation. You hate to always invoke the German government of 80 years ago. But what else is that? That's totalitarian. They're saying if you disagree with what we're doing, people with guns should come and take you away. Planned Parenthood is big into this now because it's lucrative. So here's Planned Parenthood in 2021 telling children that so-called puberty blockers are harmless. Right, that's a lie. And by the way, there's no such thing as a puberty blocker. These drugs are hormone agonists, and they're FDA approved for things like cancer treatment. You get prostate cancer, and they lower your testosterone, for example, to prevent the cancer from growing quickly. They are not approved for so-called puberty blocking. They're unapproved, and the long-term effects are not known, but it's pretty obvious they're grim. But Planned Parenthood won't tell you that. Here's their video.
You're transgender or non-binary. You may find that your puberty experiences don't line up with your gender identity or how you see yourself. That feeling can be uncomfortable, scary, and stressful. If that sounds like you, know that you're not alone. There are medicines you can take to delay puberty for a while. They're called puberty blockers, and they work like a stop sign by halting the hormones testosterone and estrogen that cause puberty changes like facial hair growth and periods. Puberty blockers are safe and can give you more time to figure out what feels right for you, your body, and your gender identity.
Okay, everything about that is dark and horrifying, and there should be an uprising against that. That's aimed at your children, not at adults who can make rational decisions, but children, people too young to drive or drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes or serve in the military or vote. People who are not, we have agreed as a group, capable of making rational adult decisions. And that's aimed at them. It's propaganda aimed at them, and it's a lie. Puberty blockers are safe. They are absolutely not safe. You can't delay puberty without damaging severely the bodies of young children. The FDA just identified several, quote, clinically serious cases of side effects after these drugs were recklessly administered to children by lunatic ideologues. The FDA found a, quote, plausible association between the use of puberty blockers and something called intracranial hypertension. Ooh, you want that for your 13-year-old? According to the Mayo Clinic, that condition can cause brain swelling, double vision, severe headaches, permanent vision loss. In other words, brain damage. Brain damage. Oh, great. Okay. On top of that, the European Journal of Endocrinology, among many other publications, has found that so-called puberty blockers often cause, quote, decreased bone density, which is associated with a high risk of osteoporosis. And there are other permanent side effects as well. We don't even know the scope of them because this has never been tested longitudinally, ever. One teenage girl just uploaded a video showing the effects of 5 years of puberty blockers on her. Watch this.
When I talk about being too far gone, I don't really know what else to call it. This is what I mean. This is how deep my voice is. It's gotten deeper over time, and it's settled. This is what I mean by hair loss. And it just keeps getting worse. It keeps thinning. It keeps receding backwards. And I'm not exactly sure that's coming back. Those are the main things when I talk about being androgenized to a point of no return. This is what happens when you give a woman testosterone. This is for 5 years. This is what happens.
People's lives are being destroyed right before us. Most adults are too cowardly to say a word about it. And the Democratic Party is actively doing all it can to promote this, to protect hospitals that are mutilating and destroying the lives of children. In the state of California, always a bellwether, a legislator called Scott Wiener has just sponsored legislation to make California a so-called sanctuary state for kids who want to mutilate their own bodies, to castrate themselves. Scott Wiener, really? Is he a good father? Would you trust this guy within 500 yards of a child? Probably not. Gavin Newsom just signed the bill, of course. So what's the point here? It's certainly not to protect children. It's not protecting them. Any parent will tell you, if you want to protect children, you tell them to take a deep breath and reach adulthood and then make rational decisions about how to live their lives. You would definitely not let them make a decision, an irreversible decision like this, for themselves. You're their parent. That's the whole point. But the Democratic Party doesn't like parents. The Democratic Party is replacing parents with itself. We're in charge now. It's the most recognizable possible move for any totalitarian movement. Break up the family, replace parents with politicians. The state is in charge. The party is in charge.